the other thing with red is that one person zone underneath that triangle where we can see directly underneath the camera. Obviously, until you have to reload, effectively hold that yourself.
Yeah.
You can force no one else to be able to utilize it. Don't have as many options like we just saw there, and you end up dueling people, but it's definitely a choice to be made.
Brand McVish.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're having a look at these ones. Let's have a quick look inside. The bases a bit bigger. Nice big cameras to look at. How good. Thank you, media team. Fantastic work.
Interestingly, green is very, very empty. You can see on blue players playing either side of the blue base. It's a little bit hard because the sight lines through blue are fairly average. So playing through it, green's very, very empty though. And you can just see players on the edge of it, but it kind of might be able to play in there and get the shots out of it, but give up a lot of potential points.
One thing I've learned a lot during this comp is that I have absolutely no clue what age anybody is, because the amount of people that qualify for Masters and the amount of people that qualify for Juniors really boggles my brain. Like, I look at some of them and I'm like, I had no clue you were like 16 years old. And there's other people that I'm like, you're like 37, are you kidding? Like...
So we have a huge junior scene now. Like that's something that's been really incredible seeing. Like the junior scene is coming up and things. And the Masters has been consistent. Consistent number of players. We get a few more every year. I know there's just going to say Master Mopar.
Master Mopar is actually jumping up a bit. We saw Moo hanging out there a bit, but Mopar's taken that lead. Considering his dislocated shoulder he came off of not too long ago.
It's a fairly strong showing there. Consistently, we'll see he's clearly found a spot where he's not getting tagged a lot, which is,
If we have a quick look at the arena cam, yeah, there's definitely going to be a lot of movement around those main like base spots, but where there's also a couple things where, somebody's got a term. Master Guardian got
termed. Oh no. Obviously, terms are slightly different in solos and masters. They're not quite as detrimental, at least the yellow button terms, as they are in team games.
Yeah.
But it's still pretty rough. So it's 500 points just gone. Go from there. Arbel's managed to climb his way back up there, and you've got Master Mopar now in second, with a fairly big gap down to Moo and then Bubbles and Vex around that 2K mark.
Yeah.
Game one.
Game one at the moment.
This is the first game.
Yeah. We started a little bit later, but, absolutely fun. We were running super ahead of time beforehand, so we had a bit of a rest.
Flick to the arena cameras, because we're seeing a lot of movement through that middle section. Of course, I commentator's curse, I've flicked it on and they've all disappeared from it.
Exactly.
That top right screen has some really large thoroughfares that go through the center of the maze. You have easy access to reloads and you can choose which way you want to go. So you do tend to find a lot of people playing in that space.
Yeah.
And you can see them sort of meander around. But there is a lot of different angles. So you've got to be kind of the trade-off there is you're going to get tagged from somewhere. You can't really control that.
Is Robo at site? Yes, he is at site from what I last saw. Rightio. So, Vaso, we'll go back to those main base cams. Yeah, again, we're seeing so much traffic at red. Yeah. CV currently holding that default spot. But what has your team been calling it? Because we get like main, we get default. I had a couple teams calling it V still.
So, I've heard triangle, obviously, V
that works
to some degree. And there's some that will indicate, like, they use some more generic terminology like pillar, which is often the middle of a base.
Oh, yeah.
But triangle is what I tended to use initially, but you kind of start to learn what everyone else calls it by the end of the or by early in the competition.
So Mopar is still holding that lead.
He is, yeah.
And he's doing pretty well.
That's mentioned CV, and CV obviously just exited himself from red base. He's back. I think he just had to reload.
Yeah.
But he's climbing his way back up, but he hasn't had a great showing so far in this first game. In the sense,
no, I was about to say
coming fourth now, but like it was a little bit of a slow start.
Well, even like what I found when we compare him to when he was playing at Hobart as well, I found like for like doubles, things like that, when he was doubling with Runt last year, Runt was getting a majority of the points, and then as soon as like Runt was ready to like help CV get his points, CV just started shooting up the ladder very quickly. So I feel like maybe that's sort of the play style he prefers, where he likes that slow burn, where he's letting everybody tire themselves out trying to get into it, and then he's just swooping in when they're all in that middle of like, oh, how long until the game's over? Like, where should I keep moving? And he's like, all right, cool, I've solidified myself where I need to be. Everybody's coming to me because it's a busy base. Let's just pack off them and I'll move if I need to.
It's interesting to think also how much the C, like, come into a base and you see CV there. Do you sit there going, I can beat CV?
This is a good spot to be. This is a good spot to be. I felt like feeding him today.
Arbel's having the time of his life. Good tag.
Arbel's demolishing right now.
Good tag ratio, 45 tags. And tag ratio isn't everything, especially as long as you're getting the points. But
well, that's the thing, is you have a super high tag ratio, but if your tags are like, oh, I've tagged 15 people and I've been tagged twice, it's like your tag ratio is super high, but
where were you?
like what you've got like 70 points. It's like, there's no real point to it, where it's like your tag ratio is a nice bonus if you've scored like pretty decently and you have a look and you go, look, my tag ratio is pretty decent that game. Like I'm over 100%. I feel confident about that. That's great. But if you're coming out of a game and you're like, oh, my tag ratio is like 237, like I think we saw earlier.
Well done.
And you haven't scored that high, it's sort of, it doesn't really even out as much.
No. Who do we have at the bottom of the green there? Got a little duel happening in green.
A little duel. I would say that spot, like I said, that main spot that's been there has been a bit of an interesting thing to see during this comp about how people have been playing it. Because I about to say we have some people that are peeking that front door super low and looking there. But the issue with that is I think what makes it really balanced as a base is the fact that you have to move to have your sidelines back. Like you were so exposed, it forces you to rely on your teammates who are on the back door to give you nice comms for it.
Yeah.
But when you're playing solo games like this, it's a very scary spot to be.
Yeah, it is. It's an interesting one because you do see a lot of people playing. If we take the green camera, which is the bottom left here, bottom right, sorry. The top right corner of it kind of enters into that flow in the middle of the base. That's it at the end of that.
Arbel holding that nice lead.
Running away with it a little bit there at the end. 700 points clear.
Sauron managing to get out of last spot at the end.
At the end, yep.
BMW, I would say, look, I'm a bit biased because he's on my team, but the fact that he's currently got an injury, like he's torn his Achilles.
Oh, gosh, yeah.
And I'm about to say also ring the sinks, which is incredibly funny with that, but he's been doing so well. Fantasy BMW might not go off as well as previous years because he can't really play the team games as much as we would like him to. But he has been doing so well in his solo games, so props to him. There's been a few injuries this year with people playing.
There's been a few, and we saw a couple of clashes in solos. We've seen a couple already, so it'll be interesting to see how we go through the rest of it. We'll just pull up the summaries. So we've got some obviously highest scorers, Arbel, highest tag ratio, being Vexen with a 36